Hey guys, this is Trenchy back again to bring you another episode of SpideyJuly. Uh, as we're about to get into this episode of SpideyJuly Season 2, Episode 2, for the review of the Season 1 um, Episode 4, Armed and Dangerous of 90 Spider-Man. Before I jump right into this, I would like to thank Marty from the Trash Picture Show for making that little intro you saw at the beginning there. It's pretty damn dope. He didn't have to do it, but it's really cool, and I appreciate it, man. Marty is a very close friend of mine. He's pretty much family, and he's a dope dude, really good friend and really good YouTube creator. He does great reviews and little stop motion. So if you like what you saw in the intro, check him out. Link will be in the description below. Um, so let's get into this episode, man. This was a pretty cool episode. Um, little middle of the road. It wasn't as exciting as some of the episodes we have covered, like the Spider Slayer episodes. But those had a lot going on. This was just more of a simpler plot and more of focusing on just a few characters and a certain villain instead of multiple villains like we had in the other two episodes. So, but I do think this one was better than the Lizard. So in this episode, we start out with Peter wanting to go on a date with Felicia, and he's preparing to go to her house. And she lives like in a mansion and shit. She's fucking rich. So we see him going there. Meanwhile, we all we see is silhouettes and kind of just these clips of tentacles, metal tentacles taking out cameras. And because this episode is the first appearance of Doc Ock, aka Dr. Octopus, which this episode kind of takes the plot of from the comic The Amazing Spider-Man issue 3 that came out in July 1963. Shit, I forget the exact date, but July 1963. Um, so yeah, Felicia goes upstairs to get a jacket, and Peter hears a loud noise. He runs up there, and we see one of the more badass shots of this episode. This episode has a lot of really good shots of Doc Ock holding Felicia with one tentacle, hoisting himself up with the other tentacles, making him look larger than he is, and yeah, holding onto her for this busted wall in front of this beautiful full moon that features quite a bit throughout the episode. I really liked this full moon for some weird reason. I think it was drawn very well, and it's just dope seeing Doc Ock in front of it. He's got the yellow and green, like, kind of armored outfit, and the fucking visors, the dope fucking visors he wears. Very great costume. I love the costume of Doc Ock in this. He then slams Peter up against the wall with his tentacle and brings down the ceiling upon him, essentially burying him in the rubble. Peter later is trying to tell some agents what happens. One of these being Agent Ford. I don't recognize him from any source material, so if anybody knows if he's a comic character or if he's a character just made for the show, let me know. I don't really recognize him, but he's kind of a dick. Yeah, we find out later when Peter finds out that the ransom is from Octavius, when Felicia mom reads it, that we find out that Peter has a past with Octavius. He used to go to his science camp, which I thought was really cool. Nice little bit of world building there. Hell, we even get to see Uncle Ben, which we haven't seen before in the series up to this point, so it was dope to see a little bit of Uncle Ben. Sadly, he doesn't really have a speaking role, it's just more a glimpse of him, but take what we can get, right? Again, this also focuses on Peter's love of science and his knowledge of science. Something very important to the character, I think, that kind of gets lost usually. Even like some of my favorite adaptations of the character, like Tobey Maguire, which I love those movies. The Sam Raimi movies don't really capture his love of science or his knowledge of science. You know, Peter is one of the smartest characters in the comics. He's like right below Reed Richards. Like, he's a very smart, very into science person. And so it's cool to get that little backstory, and we see that Dr. Octavius was nurturing this, which we do also see a little bit of in the Spider-Man 2 movie. They do have that connection. So, I like the little inspirations here and there, We then see Doc Ock has Felicia tied up, and he's explaining his story of how he wanted to make a fusion battery, kind of just like this fusion energy battery, but everybody laughed at him, and he got screwed over by Felicia's mom, so now he's holding her hostage for money, and he sees himself as a victim, and this will be his revenge, that he's gonna get this fusion battery made and stuff. Later we see J. Jonah Jameson on the news, which was a great vocal performance by Ed Asner here. Ed Asner, Doc Ock ends up calling J. Jonah, and everybody's like, stay cool, Jonah. Of course he doesn't. J. Jonah goes off on Doc Ock on the air. It's brilliant. It's pure Jonah. I will stay calm. And then he just goes off like a mad fucking dog. And you could tell Ed Asner definitely had some fun in this role. And he definitely had fun portraying Jonah. So Doc Ock is like, hey, Jonah, you bring me the money. So Jonah does, and Spider-Man follows. And an interesting thing about Octavius in this episode, and in general in the show, is he's a very elegant way of speaking, but at the same time, like, they make sure to show he's kind of insane, so they drop those hints of insanity in there, and it kind of fucks with his very elegant speech, Like, he'll be having this elegant kind of, like, way of talking, and then his insanity will puke in and kind of fuck with it, and, it's an interesting dynamic on that, for sure. Very, very interesting dynamic with that. But Spider-Man and Octavius end up fighting, and we see how powerful Octavius' tentacles are here. Like, as once Spider-Man's in their grasp, he's not getting out unless Octavius lets him out. He cannot escape. He cannot overpower these tentacles. These tentacles are 10 times more powerful than him, which I thought was cool. it's not as easy as he can just fight his way out. He has to trick his foe into letting him go, you know. We also see, like, Octavius brings down a beam on him and throws him into the dock, into the ocean, and takes off with Jonah and the money. Spider-Man comes back to the warehouse, but they are gone. And I really love that scene where he's in the doorway and he's covered in shadow. There's a lot of good shadowing in this episode that I really enjoy, including a shot later on. Some pretty good shadowing shots. I always love it when shows and cartoons play with shadowing. Also, I forgot to mention about Doc Ock's backstory. Octavius is playing the victim a lot throughout the story. He has that kind of victim mentality, like, oh, you did me wrong, I'm the victim here, I am right in what I'm doing because I'm the victim, you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you. But the thing is, like, the shit's his fault. Yeah, it sucks that they screwed him over and wouldn't finance him. But he's the one that went and tried to experiment on his own with the fusion battery, knowing that he didn't have the right safety equipment. He put himself in this predicament. He hurt himself. So it's just interesting to see him, like, especially in this episode, being like, I'm the victim, and using that to kind of condone and kind of defend what he's doing and hurting all these people. And it was a very interesting take on Dr. Octavius that I enjoyed a lot. Now, here coming up is where I have a problem with the episode. Spider-Man comes back and he faces Felicia Hardy's mom and Robbie. And Felicia Hardy mom blames him for the ransom mission not going well and not getting her daughter back. That I have no problem with. That fits with the character. But Robbie also turns on Spider-Man and says, look, I trusted you, but I always defended you from Jonah, but look, you go and do this. And it seems weird. I know Robbie's close with Jonah, but I really don't feel like he would turn on Spider-Man this quick. He's always defending Spider-Man and giving Spider-Man the benefit of the doubt. So to have this quick kind of like heel turn on Spider-Man was a little weird. And it was something I was not really a big fan of in the episode. So then Spider-Man mopes for a little bit, but then he realizes maybe he can help as Peter. So he goes to the office and Dr. Ock calls and he convinces Felicia's mom to let him talk to Doc Ock and to get to him through science, which I really like. And they have a conversation, and you can see Doc Ock kind of remembering Peter as his student, and I really like that. They're really good voice acting from Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. That's another highlight. That's the guy that voices Doc Ock. He was also in the 90s Batman series. He voiced Alfred, and he also voiced Justin Hammer in the 90s Iron Man series. And he does a really good job here in this conversation. And I really just like how they're more just bonding about science. Like, Peter is checking in on Felicia and Jonah, but really he's really keying in that, yeah, I want to see the nuclear collider battery. And Octopus is like, yeah, bring me the cash and you can see. And I really like that take. Again, it's not all about Brawn with Spider-Man. or his powers, he uses his brains as well. And I love that they're really focusing on science in this episode and his knowledge of science, and it's really that helps him win, which I really enjoy when they do that. So Peter goes to the secret hideout where Doc Ock is at, and there's a brilliant scene where he walks in and then the lights flash on and we just see Doc Ock shadowed, just his body all shadowed and silhouetted around this bright light just surrounding him, which is just a fucking dope scene. It's just, I love the shadowing work there. It was so fucking cool. Probably not to anybody else, but I thought it was fucking cool. But no, and then following, Peter and Doc Ock end up talking about the Super Collider battery, and Doc Ock's like, this is gonna help mankind. This is gonna be very powerful and bring people out of the depths of poverty, but I will control it. I will be the master. And there is a scene where Peter thinks he's about to be attacked, but he's actually just grabbing something with one of his tentacles, which I really liked. And yeah, he's really it shows how much Doc Ock is power tripping in this moment. Peter asks to be like, you got your money, let Felicia and Jonah go. Doc Ock is like, no man, I'm not gonna do that. You know, this is me, I got the power now. I have the power, you guys gotta bow to me. Keep giving me money. And shit, you know. And, he calls Peter his student, and then Peter's like, I'm not your student, and there's nothing more you can teach me. And then Doc Ock gets mad and throws him out of the building into a trash dump. And what's also cool here is that Jonah is actually like, hey, even Peter doesn't deserve that, showing Jonah does have empathy for Peter. Then Doc Ock ends up threatening Felicia with one of his tentacles, saying like, Felicia calls him a freak, and then Doc Ock is like, I'm just a victim of an accident, and you can have an accident. Of course, Spider-Man shows up. They go into battle. Spider-Man's just dodging all of Doc Ock's tentacles, and then he finds out, oh, to defeat him, I'm gonna have to use like this magnet called a dynamo, and he turns it on, but the only problem is that turning it on also turns on the rocket that is next to Jonah and Felicia. So to keep Doc Ock at bay and to not have to deal with his tentacles, he'll have to risk burning his friends. So it's either killing his friends or taking on the full fury of Doc Ock. So Spider-Man decides to let Ock go and shut off the rocket to save his friends. He goes to untie him, but Ock ends up grabbing him, and again, like I said before, once Doc Ock gets a hold of him in those tentacles, he can't get out. So, well, in the tentacles, Doc Ock turns back on the rocket. So, you have the rockets about to go off, burning Felicia and Jonah. Spider-Man is trapped in the arms of Doc Ock. You think all is doomed, but then quick on his feet, he recognizes there is another magnet on the other side of the building with controls that he could trap Ock with. So what he does is he webs Ock in the eyes, and then gets free, goes over near the magnet, and then tries to lure Ock over. Ock notices the magnet is there, and he's like, "Hey, I ain't coming over. Fuck you. Like, I'm smarter than this." But and he's like, "The rocket will burn your friends. You can't wait." But Peter does attacks the only weakness Doc has, his obsession with science, his life of science. So he takes the battery, the collider battery, and throws it. Doc Ock goes to grab it, ends up under the magnet, gets stuck up. Spider-Man ends up going over to the rocket, grabbing Felicia and Jonah in the nick of time, and swinging away with them in a funny way, having Jonah hanging by one leg upside down. Because of course it's Jonah, you gotta torture him a little bit. You gotta. It's the rule. It's the rule. But uh, Spider-Man then goes, back out the window, back into the trash pile. Felicia comes running for Peter. Peter comes out. They flirt. And then we end with an ending shot of Doc Ock in prison with all his arms tied up and chained to each wall, which I thought was cool. And then he says a little thing like, "No prison walls can contain an octopus." Like, and he's just pretty much saying, "I'm gonna get the fuck out of here eventually." And yeah, also we get another shot of that beautiful full moon. I really like that full moon, man. I really like it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All in all, I really like this episode. Good music as always. Good score. Um, Good characters. Cool plot. Nice introduction to Doc Ock. A lot of cool shading. I like the main focus on science. I like the connection between Doc Ock and Peter's past. I I enjoyed the episode a lot. I mean, it's hard coming off of the Spider Slayer episodes. Like, I wish this was kind of before. I wish the Spider Slayer episodes were saved, because I feel like those were some pretty big episodes. But all in all, I still think this is solid. I give this episode an 8. It's fun and enjoyable, and I had a good time with it. So, yeah. Stay tuned for next episode of SpideyJuly, when I, or maybe we, depending, tackle the episode of the first appearance of Mysterio, everybody's favorite fishbowl head villain. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Stay frosty. This is Trenchy signing off. Beep bop boop.